As most of you know, you probably know by now, I had a whole heap of trauma in childhood, and from it, I developed complex PTSD. Complex PTSD isn't just developed from trauma in childhood. I work with many clients who've had trauma from cumulative things, from medical injuries that they had in childhood, or people who've got special needs kids and they've had surgeries or various issues, and that cumulative stress can develop into PTSD. What PTSD does, before we develop into the fullness of PTSD, so often we have lived lives in a state of heightened perception, especially if it's because of a medical issue, if we've got a special needs child, or it's because of trauma or war. Our heightened perception needs to be on alert, because we are noticing shifts in environment, intuitive hunches that we need to be aware of, emotional disturbances that we need to protect ourselves from. All of those, that heightened awareness that we need to protect ourselves or make ourselves safe or healthy, make us exceptionally aware of the undercurrents and the unspoken things, the things in the spaces between us. So this is a beautiful capacity, because we can notice the little essences that are happening, the looks like, I like to know, if I'm in a room, I will notice, oh, they're having an affair, or they're having conflict by the way that they move together. And I can feel it. It feels like sometimes like a storm going inside of me with dynamics happening. So if I know two people are there who are in conflict, I will feel the conflict between them, because I can feel everything that's happening, because I had to develop that skill as a child to be able to protect myself from abuse. If my mother came home from work and I noticed her energy was off, I had to hide before she saw me, because otherwise I might get hurt. And I remember hiding in the cupboard, not going to greet her, because I wanted her to have a cup of tea and a biscuit first, so she'd be in a better mood. So I was really aware of energy. And so those of you who have got, or those of us who've got PTSD, we have this sense of the undercurrents to be able to notice what's happening, to protect ourselves. The challenge is that as it goes into full-blown PTSD, where there are intrusive thoughts and our brain gets locked into ways of thinking and trauma, then sometimes we can misinterpret those undercurrents and perceive them as personal attacks or against ourselves. So I want to just quickly talk about the brain, because I think it's really important to understand what's happening in the brain. Behind our eyes is the frontal orbital cortex. That connects with different parts of the brain, but especially the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is the storehouse of trauma, and they're connected. So if we are feeling heightened and noticing undercurrents, then it triggers that trauma of the amygdala, and then our perception is seen through a lens of trauma. So for me, in myself, if I know that I'm in a more stressed out state, then I know that I need to really watch my perception, because it can twist things to see them through an eyes of trauma rather than eyes of love. So one of the practices that I do, that I even did today as I was walking around, is I walk around to shift that perception. If I walk out of my house and I'm feeling stressed, I know I'll look at the world through a lens of trauma, and then I will perceive what people are doing as though they're doing it on purpose to hurt me, because that's what happened to me in childhood. So instead, to shift that, I walk out and I imagine the trees are here to love me. That building, the lights on there are to lighten me up. So I'm trying to shift that perspective so it's not triggering the trauma in my amygdala. What happens if we don't proactively do that? We might notice things that remind us of childhood and interpret it the same way that it happened in childhood. So, for example, when I used to walk into my father's office, he would not look up. He would just stare at his computer and not look up at all. And I would go, "Hi, Dad, can I offer you a coffee? Can I do?" And he would not speak to me, complete stonewalling. I can feel, as I say that, I can feel like the little trembling heart of mine. But then when my brothers walked in, the moment that he saw them, he would put down what he was doing and he opened his arms and goes, "My boys!" So excited. And I would just feel so crushed. And I remember saying to him, "You know, Dad, I just want to feel loved by you." So I said I was going to drive from my house in Pietermaritzburg to his house in Middelburg, that was about 5 or 6 hours away, to have a conversation with him because I wanted to repair our connection. So I asked him what time he got home from work, and he said 4. So I drove to get there by 3:30. I wouldn't miss a moment. He was too worried. He finally got home at past midnight. He just hid in his office. I didn't know where his office was. I tried calling at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Finally, at 8, I stopped calling and I went to my room. And I just said to him, "I don't want you as a dad anymore. I really want to be loved." And he said, "What can I do to make you feel?" All you need to do, like 2-second call, "Hi, it's your dad. I love you. Bye." That's all you need to do. And slowly that will weave love into me. And he said, "All right, I'll do that." Do you know how much he did that? He did that for 2 weeks and never again. And so now somebody blanks me. Where do you think I go? I go straight to this moment that they don't love me and I feel crushed. When somebody gives me those cold eyes, I'm no longer an adult. I'm not 48 anymore. I'm the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 18-year-old who drove to him. And I just crumble in that relationship. And I feel like, well, they don't love me. And I find it so hard in my heart to reconnect to them because they've shown me that they don't care. And so afterwards, in my head, because I felt my dad was toxic, he was unloving, that's how I will perceive the other person, through those eyes of trauma. Other people who didn't experience that, if they see somebody else doing that, they'll just go, "Oh, he's having a bad day." But I see it as, he doesn't love me and our friendship's over. And I'm unsafe and can't be around them. So I really want those of us who've had PTSD to really notice, what are the core basic triggers? So it might be your top 3 triggers or your top 5 triggers of the way people look at you, or the way people maybe stonewall you or don't respond to you. Or, you know, for me, another trigger is like people being excessively nice, because I was sexually abused as a kid. When somebody's excessively nice, I don't trust that, because I think, oh, they're priming me to hurt me. And so when somebody's nice, I go, oh, you know, stay away. And I think they're an abuser. No, they're just being nice. It's okay. And I have to remind myself, my lens is fucked up because of PTSD, because of trauma. So I have to catch myself and go, that's my brain. They're just a human being. I have to constantly catch myself and to untwist my lens so that I get healthier in my perception of other people. So I want you to write down what are the top triggers that you have that you notice in your life, so that the moment your partner or your kid or something, this, just the situation that I was saying with you of my dad stonewalling me. My son went away for the weekend, came back. He had a wonderful weekend. And I was like, tell me all about it. No, I'm tired. And went into his room, and I just felt crushed. I imagined wrapping myself in a blanket. So what I want you to do when that thing happens, I want you to love yourself. I love that inner child. Straight away, I loved my little inner child. The next day, I was like, so how was it? And he's like, Mom, I just don't feel like talking. He's a teenager. That's what teenagers do. Teenagers are meant to separate. But then I'm not talking to him when he does that like a mother to a child. I'm like a little girl at 7 and my daddy's ignoring me. So I looked after that and I said to my son, oh, my boy, it's just triggering these old memories for me of my dad treating me like he didn't love me. And my son turned to me and said, of course it's triggering that. Oh, I didn't even think. I'm so sorry. I really will tell you everything about what happened, and I'm really looking forward. And then he was able to share, but he couldn't then. He said, I can't do it now, but I will. And then today we spent a couple of hours talking about the weekend. But he said, I really care about you, and I'm going to work on when I'm overtired that I speak to you with love, even though I'm tired. So in sharing, I'm supporting him to grow in that. But if I had to turn to him and go, this is what you're doing wrong, why do you ignore me? Then I would be taking all my anger and all my pain that was towards my dad out on my son, and he doesn't deserve that. Or whichever friend doesn't deserve that. So I have to manage the way that I'm expressing myself so that my son can hear the love and the care and what I need. If I just offload my anger, then my son doesn't have the capacity to hear, because his brain will go into his survival mode and shut down. And then it's going to trigger me because he's ignoring me again, because that's my trigger. So I have to own how I'm expressing it, because otherwise he'll shut down and I will feel deregulated because that triggers my own pain. So how I shared was, I really want to feel close to you. And I feel when you're speaking to me like that, I feel so small inside. And I really want to feel close and loved and connected with you. And he said, I really get that, Mom. I can really hear that. And I'm going to work on that. I said, what I wish is that even if you're feeling exhausted and tired and grumpy, you can still feel whatever you're feeling, but don't take it out on me and blank me. Share with me with love, like, Mom, I wish right now that I could speak with you. I just feel too grumpy and I love you. And then I have to regulate myself, because he set that boundary. So now I need to honor that boundary and just go, oh, okay, I'm going to love myself. And in that time, then I can have a date with my inner child and say to my inner child, I'm here for you. I love you. I care for you. I'm cherishing you. And weave love into that part of me that is triggered, rather than take it out on my son. And that way, today my son, he's got tonsillitis, so he feels like a pile of shit, but he's been so sweet. Hey, Mom, I love you. And can you get me this? Or, he's still feeling grumpy and in pain. But he's being so loving because I expressed it in a way that was healthy. So what I want you to do is write down what are the core triggers that you had from childhood, and then notice when you were getting triggered by them, and capture that this is not what you're projecting into the world. This is your lens is wired because of that heightened sensitivity from childhood to trauma. So you perceive things through that trauma lens. And when you're perceiving it through the trauma lens, you get hyper reactive and emotional because you're hurting. You need to regulate and calm that emotion so that you can express and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I need. And if they don't have capacity for that, it's not that they're bad people. They just didn't get those skills in childhood. That's totally okay. There's nothing to shame them or make them wrong. It's just they don't have that capacity. And then we can share it in a way that we can both grow together in our needs being met together, whether it's to be valued, to be loved, to be heard, to be met. But we have to share it in a way heard and they feel valued and cherished by us and honored, and sharing in a way that says, hey, this is what happened. This is what it triggered in me. So you're owning that in yourself. This is what I would really need. And then letting it in and receiving that so that you can rewire and weave in the love and the goodness that you've always needed. I hope that helps. Love and care and goodness. This work with PTSD is not easy. You know, I realize now that I've probably had PTSD since I was 26. I started noticing or having nightmares and flashbacks when I was 26. And I'm now 48, and there are periods of my life where I don't notice it at all, and I'm completely stable, and it's glorious. And then something will happen that will trigger the trauma, and I will see the world through that lens, and I will feel unsafe, and how I perceive everything is that I'm unsafe and everybody else is the enemy that's come to traumatize me. And I have to catch that and know nobody on earth, majority of people, not nobody, but majority of people are just trying to cope with complexity in their lives. And the more that I can see them through eyes of kindness, the more that I will treat them with care and respect, and the more that they'll be able to respond to me with love and cherishing. I hope that helps. Sending you also so much love. And I do have a course on this if you want it. I'm happy to share. Emma said, very true. I think a lot of my actions come from my childhood experiences. Emma, it is so hard. It's so hard when our childhood experiences warp our brain. And to learn new skills, because if you had adverse childhood experiences that were traumatizing, it changes the way we think, it changes our brain formation, it changes how we feel about ourselves, it changes our actions, because we didn't get the skills to be healthy, to love ourselves, to express ourselves healthily. So not only do we just have to adult normally, get a job, parent our kids, do everything, we also have to somehow miraculously heal all the crazy trauma that happened, plus learn all those skills we didn't get in childhood. It is a lot of work, and it is hard, and it often feels completely unfair that we not only have to just live a normal life, but we also have to heal, and we have to gain those skills just in order to be functional like the normal, typical person who hasn't had a level of trauma. So, you know, I know how hard it is for me, and I can understand that that's hard for you. And the more empathy that I have to myself of understanding my actions when I'm stressed come from that trauma. Right now, I don't need any judgment. I need care, and I need to repair. Where I have taken out my trauma on other people, I need to say, I think I was triggered by trauma because I really flooded you. And my son has been so great for that. Because he's autistic, he has no toleration of loud sounds. So I'm speaking fast or really upset by something, he'll just say, I really want to hear you, but I can't when you speak to me like that. I need short bits. I need you to speak in a low toned voice, slow with a kind tone. Otherwise, I can't hear you. So I've really had to learn to regulate myself and speak in a much healthier way. And even tonight, I was like excited by something, and he was like, could you just make your tone lower, please? So that he could actually hear me, because different pitches, being autistic, different pitches are really hard for him. And so he's helped me to learn what actions are not healthy and to do better. So for me, flooding would just happen so strongly, and of where I would like, I need you to hear me. And I had to learn nobody can hear me when I speak to them, when I speak at them or demand that they listen to me. Folk can only hear me when they are in a safe space where they've got capacity and they've got skills. So if I'm just like bashing them to listen, they're going to shut down, get defensive, turn off, turn away, because it's too much. So I have to actually listen and honor his capacity. And I will say to him, hey, I've got a struggle. Can I speak about it? And instead of saying to him, you did this, I'll say, hey, I'm noticing I'm upset by something. Can we find a solution together? So instead of it being an attack, it's being something that we're working on together to find a resolution. So in this situation where I was saying, I get triggered, and it reminds me of, as a little girl, of going into this trauma with my dad. What do you think we could do? And then we brainstormed, and he said, well, if I could be loving even while I was grumpy, then you would still feel loved. I wonder if I can practice that. But if I had just gone, you're an awful person for not doing that, and repeated my trauma of insulting, mocking, shaming that I had in childhood, it would shut him down, and then he would turn away, and I would lose that connection and relationship. And I would feel, God, he's such an asshole that he doesn't care for me. The reality is I would have flooded him and shut him down. So how we talk, we need to learn those skills and do it differently. If you didn't get those skills in childhood, I've got this training that you can do. If you go to restoring.love/RRR, and it's called Resourcing You to Respond and Repair. And it's a beautiful training that goes through how to get safe in your body, how to regulate yourself, how to make sure somebody's accessible. Hey, is now a good time to talk about an issue that I'm struggling with? Because I'd love your support in finding a solution. Way better than, what did you do to me? Because that's going to just turn people off, shut them down. And then if you had still face like I did, it would feel really deregulating. So it's really making sure somebody's accessible. And if you flood them, they shut down. And then, so it teaches you how to do that. And it teaches you how to respond to somebody and say, hey, these are the 5 steps to apology. This is how to empathize. So if you have struggled, then that's a beautiful training to be able to support you. I'm so glad that this is helpful. I'm sending you so much love, and I really appreciate that it's helpful. Do share and let me know what else is going on, and I'll do another live video to support you. All right, loads of love, everybody. I think that is it. Are there any more questions before I go? Nicola, I understand that you do the same with your 16-year-old. The more with our kids that we can give them the skills that we didn't have, the more that we will change the world ultimately, because it will become a more loving, safe space for everybody. I have taught my son the 5 steps to empathy, the 5 steps to apology. I have taught him how, when I am deregulated by somebody else, he can't do it if he's the one who's triggered me, because that's too triggering for him. But if I'm triggered by somebody else in a PTSD state and I'm deregulated and can't function, I've taught him how to breathe with me. Hey, Mom, let's breathe together, and then tell me what's happening. And I've taught him how to empathize, and I've taught him how to listen so that he is reflecting on what people are saying. And somebody at the school, the deputy head, said, Your son is more emotionally mature than the majority of the teachers here because he's so able to do that. And that's just because I've done that consistently. And that is a gift of PTSD. Because of having PTSD, I have had to go, I'm non-functional. I am not working in, like, life is not working for me because of complex PTSD. And so I just had to break it down and go, okay, so what is the shitstorm that's happening and how can I cope with this? Or how to get functional? And then I had to grow those skills. And as I grew those skills, I could teach my kids. And then once my kids could do it, our home became more safe, more stable. And now we can work through the hardest issues and have the deepest relationship because those triggers, we've worked through so many of those triggers and have such a capacity to resolve issues. And I really hope and wish the same for you. All right, beautiful people, sending you so much love, and I will see you online soon. Love to you. Bye.